Certainly, I'm not envious, but I'll be honest with you, Olya, you're fortunate. You and Mishka have a wonderful family. I can't recall a time when you two quarreled. Everything seems so peaceful, all right? And your son, he's a remarkable young man. With parents like you and Mishka, how could he be anything but extraordinary? Mishka is his true father. Two short planks lay on the broom, where Olga and Irina sat after bumping into each other near the store. Irina was heading towards the next street, while Olga had already arrived. As often happens, they felt the need to discuss worldly matters. In response to her friend's compliments, Olga let out a sigh and gazed at the withered flowers swaying in the gentle breeze of the front garden. "It looks like it's going to rain," she remarked, glancing up at the sky. Without waiting for a response, Irina rose from her seat and picked up her bag. "Well, I have to leave now. You should drop by sometime, but I must get back to work," she trailed off. "I will, Irisha, I will," Olga assured her. Hurriedly, Olga made her way into the house. Dimka had already returned from work and locked himself in his room. Just the other day, he had broken up with his almost fiancée when he discovered she was seeing someone else. The breakup had hit him hard, and Dimka still wore a gloomy expression. Olga, like any mother, felt sorry for him. Her son had grown from being a 2-year-old to a 20-year-old. It pained her to see him suffer. "Mitya, you should eat something," she suggested. "Not now, Mom. I don't feel like it yet," Dimka replied. "Well, don't dwell on it too much. Time heals all wounds, and this too shall pass. You'll find a girlfriend, and we'll celebrate your wedding. And most importantly, you'll live happily ever after." Dimka mechanically continued to eat, chewing without much enthusiasm, simply to have something in his mouth. "I'm going to see Pasha," he announced. "Go ahead, son. Maybe you'll have some fun," Olga encouraged. As soon as her son left, Mikhail arrived home from work. Olga went to greet him, as she had done countless times before, and wanted to embrace him, but she encountered her husband's cold gaze. She proceeded to set the table, observing the furrowed brow on her husband's face. He ate silently, almost as monotonously as Dimka. "What's the matter, Misha?" she inquired. Her husband's distant demeanor troubled her. "You and even Dimka, both of you seem down in the dumps," Mikhail exclaimed. Mikhail, with his dark, curly hair interwoven with strands of light gray, scrutinized his wife intently. Olga, too, possessed dark and slightly wavy hair. Since their youth, those around them admired the couple, considering them both beautiful and content. Olga had struggled to conceive for 7 years. People began to cast curious glances her way, speculating and hinting about her ability to have children. However, Mikhail always encouraged her, assuring her that they would have a son or daughter. They just needed to be patient and believe in it. Indeed, after 7 years of being together, Olga discovered that she was pregnant, which brought a sense of relief to her relatives. However, after giving birth, she fell into a state of depression, as revealed by her acquaintance, Irina, who had seen her just an hour before. Olga appeared distant and emotionless, wearing a poker face. She would hold the baby close to her and suddenly break into tears. On the other hand, Mikhail was overjoyed and filled with excitement. He fluttered around like a dove, taking care of household chores like washing diapers and cooking porridge when Olga was busy. Gradually, Olga's sadness began to dissipate, and all the love in her heart poured out towards her son and husband. One day, Olga approached her husband and tenderly touched his curly hair. However, Mikhail withdrew his hand, avoiding her touch. Concerned, Olga asked, "What's wrong? Please tell me. I don't know myself, but I want to uncover the truth." Mikhail pushed his plate away. "I don't even know how to say it. So let me ask you directly, without any hesitation, and please answer honestly, is Dimka mine?" Olga struggled to breathe, freezing in place. Her hand instinctively reached for her neck, as if attempting to loosen a tight collar. "Misha, why are you doing this? Who told you such things?" "It doesn't matter who said what. Just answer me honestly, is Dimka my child or not? Olga's voice quivered as she replied, he is yours. Of course, he's your son. Then why are you blushing? Why are you stumbling over your words? I know that Dimka is my son. He's a part of our family regardless. But I'm talking about something else. Is he really mine? Olga mustered her strength and answered firmly, yes, he is from you. And enough of this discussion. It upsets not only our son, but also you. Mikhail rose heavily from his chair. We didn't have this conversation. With trembling hands, Olga began to collect the dishes, nervously dropping a fork and a spoon. She gazed silently into the living room, where Mikhail carefully flipped through their family album, examining photos of their son and himself as a child. Olga wanted to remain silent, biting her lip to avoid saying anything that might upset him, but inside, she trembled with apprehension. Why do you keep digging? Why do you compare? What are you trying to find out? They don't resemble each other at all, Mikhail muttered. Not at all. He doesn't even look much like you. Well, that means he looks like himself, Olga responded. It's normal for children not to resemble their parents. Dimka looks just like you, by the way. His hair is as dark as yours. Don't argue with me. Let me tell you this. Until today, there wasn't even the slightest doubt. But now everything has changed. There are people who were with you on that business trip. Do you remember 20-something years ago when you attended that 2-week school? Some sort of retraining? Olga listened, her hands shaking. She continued tidying up, holding back her emotions. Olga's face flushed with heat as she felt a burning sensation. She glanced at her husband, searching for the right words. Yes, imagine this, she began, her voice weary. I ran into a classmate today, someone you can probably guess. She's been living in the city for a long time, which is why we haven't seen each other in years. So tell me, Olya, who is Yuri Georgievich? Misha, he's your son. Dimka is your son, she replied, her voice filled with exhaustion. Olya, you can verify it if you want. I'll do anything. Mikhail spoke quietly, his voice carrying a metallic edge. Olga sank into the sofa, placing a white towel on her lap. She remained silent for a moment. There's no need to verify anything, Misha. It seems the truth is destined to come out. All these years, I believed that Dima was your son. At first, I had doubts about myself. I even underwent a secret checkup, thinking I might be unable to conceive. They told me I was healthy, that there was nothing wrong with me. That's when I realized it was unlikely for you to father a child with me. Her hands fumbled with the towel, folding it meticulously and then unfolding it again. I never intended to deceive you, but I did, and then I did it again, and I love you now. It just happened that way. And when I realized I was pregnant, I convinced myself it was your child. Even as he grew up and I saw the resemblance, I remained silent and couldn't bring myself to leave you. Please forgive me, Misha. Forgive you? Mikhail erupted, springing up from his seat and almost bellowing. His cry resonated like the roar of a wounded beast. You've deceived me all my life. How could you? I never fathered a child, and he's from someone out there, in that damned school of yours. I did it because I love you, because you never had a child of your own, Olga pleaded. You're lying. I don't believe you. I'm as healthy as can be. It's you. His words trailed off as a storm of curses rained down on Olga for the first time in her life. The torrent only ceased when Dimka appeared at the doorway. The bewildered expression on their son's face silenced his parents. What was all that shouting? What's going on? Dimka questioned, his gaze darting between his parents. Nothing, my son. Go to your room. We'll sort this out ourselves, Olga urged, attempting to shield him from the unfolding turmoil. No, wait, Mikhail interjected, stepping towards Dimka. Why are we treating you like a child? Why don't you know the truth? You're grown up now, a man. You have the right to know. He took his son's hand. Sit down, son, sit down. You're not a little boy anymore. You won't faint. Mikhail's voice trembled as he revealed the painful truth. It turns out I'm not your biological father. Your mother gave birth to you with another man. That's the whole story." Dimka stared at his parents, his eyes filled with disbelief. "This doesn't make any sense. Are you both caught up in some soap opera?" "What soap operas? We have our own drama right here." Michael began pacing the room, massaging his neck as if a heavy burden had just been lifted. "But it's true, your mother has just confessed." "Mum, is it true?" Olga discarded the towel, rose from her seat, and approached her son. "It's true, my dear," she confessed. "That's how it happened. And I'll tell you everything." "You see," Michael shouted, "it's true. So all these 20 years you've been hiding it from us." "No, you had to pretend everything was fine." "I wasn't pretending. I truly loved you," Olga pleaded. "Don't you dare talk to me about love. You have 3 days to move out of here. This is my house, my parents' house, registered under my name. You can go to your sister's or your mother's place. I don't care." "Mom, why? Why did you do this?" Dimka's voice trembled with emotion. "Calm down, my son. Let's talk calmly and figure things out, and then we'll leave together." "And why should Dimka go with you?" Michael interrupted, halting in the middle of the room. "Dimka is not at fault. Dimka is my son and will remain so, even if I have a dozen children. And I know for certain that I will have children. Not with you." He walked over to his son. "Dima, stay here. This is your home, and I am your father. I raised you, and it's not your fault." "Dima, pack your things," Olga requested. "We're leaving now." "Alyanka also betrayed me." The boy looked at his father. "Are all women like that?" "Daddy, I'm staying with you." "Dima, what are you saying?" Now Olga screamed, her face flushed with anger. "Don't be foolish. I am your mother, your own mother. Are you really going to abandon me?" "I will," the son calmly replied. "Alyanka also cheated on me, seeing another man, and now she's married, trampling on my feelings. And it's not your father's fault that you betrayed him. So I'm staying with Dad." "That's right," Michael agreed, taking a pillow and heading to the other bed. "Don't worry, I won't be a bother. I'll leave tonight. And you know, Misha, I think it's better that you know. Otherwise, I couldn't make up my own mind. It has made me feel better, but I feel sorry for Dimka. He hasn't made up his mind. He's suffering because of Alyanka. The boy is traumatized, which is why he rejects his own mother. And you're taking advantage of him." Olga spoke softly, careful not to wake her son, as she packed her belongings. "You can take whatever you want," Michael said, splashing water on his face from the basin. "I won't interfere." "Well, why not? Let's do it legally. We'll file for divorce, and let the court handle the division of property," Olga proposed. Mikhail straightened up, holding the towel in his hands. "Olya, do you really want a noisy divorce where everyone can hear? Can't we do it without involving the court? I told you, take whatever you want. And one more thing. I won't go around the village claiming that Dimka isn't my son. He was my son, and he will remain so. Your betrayal is our private matter." Olga closed the suitcase and turned to Michael. She appreciated her husband's suggestion. Above all, she wanted Dimka to be unaffected by their divorce. "All right, let it be that way. I don't want people gossiping about Dimka." She pointed to the pots and pans on the stove. "I've made you some rasolnik, cutlets in the pan, and pasta in a small pot. There are dumplings and minced meat in the freezer. Enough for you initially. I have to go to work. I'll stay at Aunt Masha's tonight and visit my mother in the district center on weekends." Michael stood by the wash basin, clutching a towel in his hands, jolted awake by the sound of the slamming door. Collapsing onto the couch, he enveloped his head with his arms and let out a muffled howl, as if an old wound had been reopened. "Daddy, what are you doing? Where's Mom?" his son asked, concerned. "It's nothing, son. Everything's fine. Your mother went to work," Michael replied, attempting to mask his distress. "Dad, I won't leave you. I may be young, but I've been through a similar situation," his son assured him. "It's all right, son. We'll get through this. It just caught me off guard. I thought she would deny everything, but instead she confessed, Michael said, a bitter grin appearing on his face. You see, she's so conscientious. 3 months had passed since Michael and Olga divorced. Ditka still lived with his father, but the house now felt empty. It's okay, son. We'll make it through, Michael repeated, trying to encourage both himself and his son. What do you think, Dimka? Should I bring a woman into the house? Dimka shrugged his shoulders. Why not? You have every right to. I'm not that old yet. I can still have a family, have more children. Michael approached his son and lightly patted his shoulder. Won't you be jealous of your father? Don't worry, Dad. I understand. I won't be offended, Dimka assured him. That's good. There's this woman, a lonely girl around 30 years old. Her name is Oksana. We've been dating, and I want to take it seriously, without any deception, so that it's real, Michael explained. I understand, Father. I understand, Dimka replied. Thank you, Dimka. You're a real man, no nonsense, and thank you for your support. Let's have a woman in the house who can cook us some cabbage soup. Things have gotten a bit chaotic around here for both of us, Michael suggested. By the way, Dimka, do you keep in touch with your mother? She calls all the time, asking how I'm doing, Dimka responded. And what about you? You should reach out to her, Michael suggested, feeling a twinge of guilt. After meeting Oksana, his heart felt lighter, and his resentment toward Olga began to fade. Michael believed that he still had his whole life ahead of him, a life free from deceit and betrayal. Well, it'll be fine, Dimka answered. She's still our mother after all. Maybe you should call her yourself and find out what's going on, Michael suggested, concerned about the sudden lack of communication from Olga. Dimka retrieved his phone and dialed his mother's number, only to hear the automated message that she was unavailable. It struck him as strange because his mother had always been easily reachable. This was the first time he felt a disconnect from her. Daily calls had become their routine, and he had expected it to continue indefinitely. Yet, for 3 days, there had been no calls from her, only the disheartening message of an unavailable subscriber. Call your grandmother, Michael suggested, breaking the silence. Maybe she knows something. It's pointless to talk to Grandma. She can't hear very well, Dimka replied. Before he could finish his statement, the phone rang, and he couldn't believe his ears when he heard his grandmother's voice. Grandson, come here, she cried, almost shouting into the receiver. What's wrong? Dimka asked, his concern deepening. Come on, grandson, she repeated, her voice filled with distress. Dimka found himself utterly bewildered. Well, nothing is clear at all, he remarked. The following day afternoon, he requested time off from work and hitchhiked to the district center. Where is Mother? He asked his grandmother, Anya, anxiously. Olyeshka is in the hospital. She's been there for 3 days, she revealed. How could that be? Why? Dimka inquired, shocked. First, it was her blood pressure, and then her heart. She called you, but you didn't answer, and it upset her greatly, Anya explained. The news left Dimka stunned. His mother had never complained about her health and was a radiant, beautiful woman. When she and Michael strolled together, people turned their heads, admiring the stunning couple. So it was difficult for Dimka to accept that his mother was now in the hospital. Please go and visit her, grandson. She's your mother, the one who carried you in her womb, Anya pleaded. Okay, Grandma, I'll go right now, Dimka said, determination in his voice. He hurriedly left his grandmother's modest apartment and made his way to the district hospital. As Dimka walked, a loud woman's voice called out from behind him, Who's that walking around without a coat? I'm here to see Olga Seliverstova, he replied, turning to face a tall, authoritative woman in a white coat. Her son, isn't it? Yes, her son, the nurse confirmed. How is she? Well, first wipe your shoes thoroughly, then put on your coat, and finally proceed to room 5. But I'll prepare her first, as we don't need any surprises. Now, why are you standing there? Listen to what the head nurse said. Yes, of course, Dimka stammered, feeling a mix of nervousness and urgency. He stepped into the room with utmost care, making an effort not to disturb the tranquility, only to be taken aback by the sight of Olga's pallid complexion. Despite her weariness and sorrow, she managed to muster a smile for her son. "Hello, my dear," she greeted, motioning for him to take a seat. "Your mother is feeling a bit tired." Her once beautiful face bore the marks of exhaustion and sadness. "Mum, I had no idea. I called yesterday, but you weren't available," he confessed, his confusion evident. "Oh, that must have been when it died. I haven't had a chance to check my phone since I arrived here," she explained. "What's going on? Is it something serious?" he inquired, concern lacing his words. "It's nothing major. They'll fix it. My friend, Margarita Igorevna, convinced me to come here. She said I needed urgent treatment, so I had to follow her advice," Olga revealed. "Is she the tall and strict one?" he asked, recalling the rumors he had heard. "Well, yes, everyone here seems to be afraid of her, but she's actually quite kind. They assure me I'll be out in 10 days. How are you doing? Have you been eating well? It seems like you've lost weight. Have you met someone? Do you have a girlfriend?" Olga inquired, hoping for her son's happiness. "No, Mom, not yet," he replied honestly. "Oh, my dear son, I want nothing more than for you to find happiness. Please don't worry about me, I'll manage," she reassured him. Dimka glanced out of the window, blinking away the tears that threatened to betray his emotional turmoil. He didn't want to show his mother his vulnerability. The scene before him overwhelmed him, causing a lump to form in his throat. "Mom, please get better. I'll call you and Grandma every day," he pleaded, gently holding her hand. "Please, forgive me. Son, don't blame yourself. I understand everything. You just went through a painful breakup with your beloved fiancé, and now this news has left you confused," Olga comforted him. Dimka pursed his lips and remained silent for a moment, tenderly stroking his mother's hand. "Mom, I love you," he finally confessed. Olga smiled warmly. "Sonny, I knew it all along. I believed in your love. I love you too. Now go, and don't worry." "Mom, I will come back. I'll be here tomorrow," he promised. "What about work? You'll need to take some time off," she reminded him. "I'll request a week off. I have a good reason. My mom is in the hospital," he explained, determined to be by her side. As he left the room, he discreetly wiped away a tear, grateful that his mother hadn't noticed the display of his emotions. "Tak, come here," Margarita Igorevna beckoned, standing before the resident's room like an imposing tower clad in white. Her formidable presence instilled fear in the medical staff, and rumors circulated that even the chief physician dreaded her. When she first arrived 15 years ago, the chief physician, Alexander Nikolaevich, had referred to her as a towering woman. A nurse overheard it, and since then, she had earned the nickname Grandiose Margarita. "Listen carefully, young man," she asserted, placing her massive hand on Dimka's shoulders. "When you visit your mother, make sure you don't come empty-handed. Understand?" Dimka's realization struck him only now. He hadn't even brought any juice. "I forgot, honestly," he admitted. "Can I quickly run out and come back? I'll buy some fruit." "You may. You have my permission. And buy flowers," replied the person he was speaking to. "All right." Dimka hurriedly left the hospital and rushed to the city center, where he knew there was a flower shop. Half an hour later, he arrived, grabbed his coat, and called out to Margarita. "You promised me," he reminded her. "This is for you," as he held out a bouquet. "Not for me, silly. The flowers are for your mother." "Oh, you can be so absent-minded. I have to teach you everything," she scolded. "Oh, well, here." Dimka reached into his pocket and pulled out a chocolate bar. "This is for you." "Well, that's another thing. We can indulge in sweets," she replied. She stopped in front of the ward and said, "You hand over the flowers, kiss your mother, and promise to be a good son. Do you understand me?" Dimka nodded, captivated by Margarita's presence. He obeyed her every word. Back at home, Dimka sat at the table with his father for a while. The tea had long gone cold, but they occasionally reheated it, only to let it cool again. "Don't be offended, Dad, but I've decided to move in with my grandmother. I'll wait for Mom to come home from the hospital. When I found out what she did to you, I thought you were the one who was wronged, so to speak. And now she's too weak, and I want to support my mom. I'm not offended. It's the right decision. Olga has always been a good mother. You can't take that away from her. And she was a good wife," his father replied. "Dad, get married if you want. You have every right. I won't say anything." "Dima, what about work? It's a long commute," his father inquired. "I'll transfer. I'll work in the district center. I've already sorted everything out," Dimka assured him. During the weekend, Dimka moved in with his grandmother and began visiting his mother every day. Margarita Igorevna warmly greeted the boy with a smile, opening the door to the ward and announcing, "Olya, meet a visitor." In her spare time, she would visit and sit by Olya's bedside. "You have a good son, Olya. You shouldn't have worried," Margarita reassured her. "Rita, thank you for your support," Olya expressed her gratitude. "What for, Olyashka? Remember 15 years ago, when I was going through a tough time with Vidya, almost on the verge of divorce? You supported me then, and now it's my turn. It all happened, but Misha and I can't reconcile. That's because you're too conscientious. Someone else would have held on until the end and not admitted it. So now, it's up to you. The important thing is that Dimka is with you wholeheartedly. Ah, life, we only meet when something happens. When you get better, we might be apart again for who knows how many years. Rita, we'll meet again sooner if we have a good reason. Dmitri, how about saying hello? You're rushing like a hurricane. What's the hurry?" The head nurse called out to Dimka, holding a bouquet of flowers. Breathless, he almost ran down the corridor, oblivious to everyone around him. "Oh, Margarita Igorevna, hello. Mom has been discharged, so I'm in a hurry," Dimka explained. "I see, you're flying at full speed, almost knocking Katya over," Margarita replied, observing his haste. Dimka turned around and caught sight of a young nurse entering the room. Her blonde hair was concealed beneath a pristine white medical cap, with only a few loose curls swaying at her temples as she walked. Dimka stood rooted to the spot, gazing at the nurse until she vanished into the ward. "Seems like he's in a rush. The discharge isn't ready yet, and Katya is about to administer an injection. He'll have to wait," someone remarked. "Well, I don't mind waiting. I'll just sit over there," Dimka responded, suddenly remembering the flowers. He handed one of the bouquets to the head nurse, Margarita Igorevna, saying, "This is for you, Margarita Igorevna. Thank you for your help." Margarita smiled and said, "Oh, Dmitri, you've mixed things up again." "What's wrong?" Dimka asked, surprised. "The second bouquet is for my mother, and this one is for you as a token of gratitude." Margarita slightly opened the door to the ward and whispered, "Take a look. Katya is administering an injection to your mother, along with other procedures like IV drips. But that's not the point. A kind word, Katya knows how to provide support and calmness. It would be better if you gave this bouquet to her." Dimka looked at Margarita with astonishment. Yes, I'm sure. Give it to her. Remember Aunt Rita with a kind word," Margarita chuckled. Dimka saw a kind and amiable side to this grandiose Margarita Igorevna, as her colleagues called her. After taking his mother home from the hospital, Dimka settled with his mother and grandmother, leaving his father behind. He would often visit Mikhail once a week, but the visits were brief. Seeing a stranger in the house where he had grown up felt strange. The furniture had been rearranged, different curtains adorned the windows, and there were new dishes. Most importantly, there was a new mistress of the house, a petite and pleasant woman named Oksana, who always wore a smile while trying to please Dimka. "Stay a little longer," his father requested. "Tell me what's new with you." Everything is the same as before. As I've already told you. Dimka remained silent. As they walked out of the gate, he finally confessed, everything has changed. You can see it for yourself. What can you do? I didn't expect such a sudden turn of events. Tell me, how is your mother? How is she feeling? Mikhail wanted to exchange greetings, but hesitated. They've lived together for so many years, and Olya never complained. I hope she doesn't suffer anymore, he added. She's doing fine. You know, she has a wonderful friend who works as a head nurse at the hospital. She arranged for my mother's treatment, Dimka shared. They've been friends for so long. Olya never mentioned it. May she never be sick again. Mikhail wanted to say more, but held back. How about your personal life? He asked instead. Well, Dimka hesitated. It's still a work in progress. Do you have a girlfriend? I do, the son confessed. 2 months had elapsed since his hospital discharge, and for Dimka, the day he left the hospital marked the beginning of his encounter with Katya. Acting on the advice of Margarita Igorevna, Dimka presented the bouquet intended for her to Katya, who happened to be her nurse. Thus, their acquaintance commenced. Olga, aware that her son was dating a nurse from the local hospital, remained silent and refrained from asking questions. However, Dimka, on the other hand, felt compelled to inquire. Mom, don't worry, there's something I'd like to discuss. Perhaps it's unpleasant, Dimka began. Olga took a seat across from him and attentively listened, encouraging him to speak his mind. Well, I wanted to know about the man you dated, you know. I think you understand. Dimka hesitated, searching for the right words. You mean you want to know who your biological father is? Olga responded, gently stroking the tablecloth as if trying to smooth out a crease. I don't know much about him. We met by chance, and our relationship ended quickly. I made sure he couldn't find me. He didn't even know my last name. Sometimes his name appeared in the newspaper. He held a prominent position in the region at that time and had recently divorced. I left and deliberately avoided pursuing any further contact. If you want to learn more about him, the library has all the issues of our regional newspaper. They often wrote about him, and his portrait is there too. 10 years ago, I read in the newspaper that he passed away. His name was Yuri Prokhorov. Mom, I understand that even though Yuri Prokhorov is my biological father, my real father is Michael because he raised me and cared for me just as much as you did, Dimka reassured his mother. I'm glad you understand, Dimka. You don't have to justify anything. If you want, you can go to the library and look through the newspapers. You just need to know, Olga responded, her voice filled with warmth. Dimka hadn't visited the library since high school, and even then, he only went when necessary. This time, he spent over 2 hours flipping through old newspapers, studying various faces. Several articles caught his attention, including a photograph. As he gazed at the face of a stranger, he noticed familiar features. Initially, he struggled to remember where he had seen that face, but then he realized that he simply resembled the man who had no knowledge of his existence. Leaving the library feeling tired, he also experienced a sense of lightness in his soul. He felt profound empathy for his mother, his father, and even this stranger, Yuri Georgievich. Dimka aspired to live a life without regrets, avoiding mistakes in the coming years, decades, and beyond. Hey, Olya, I'm home, Mikhail announced, stomping into the hallway without removing his jacket. Hello, Misha. Take off your jacket, wash your hands, and come to the table. Let's have lunch together, Olya, dressed casually at home, beckoned him to sit. Mikhail gladly removed his jacket, briskly heading to the bathroom. On his way, he explained, As Dimka informed me, I called you immediately. It's no joke. My son has decided to get married, although I haven't met the bride yet. She's a wonderful girl, very pleasant. I believe you'll get to meet her soon. Dima promised to bring Katya to visit you, maybe even tomorrow, Olya assured him. Mikhail took a seat at the table, his slight cough catching his breath. Do you have a cold? His companion asked. No, it's just a cough, Mikhail replied. So what did I come by for? I wanted to discuss organizing the party. We'll need money, of course, and we should think about a gift. Should we give it separately or together? I don't know, whatever you want, came the response. It's not like you're alone now. I don't know if I'm alone or not. I was in a hurry. I moved Oksana. Mikhail trailed off. What does Oksana have to do with this, Misha? His companion interrupted. It's not her fault that we broke up so quickly. Olya, I was in a rush. All that talk about having kids. What kids now? My hair is turning gray, and I'm unlikely to have children. I'd already have one son, Dinka. So, why don't we give the young couple a gift? Reunite them or something? I mean, let's get back together, Mikhail suggested. Olga covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling as she tried to hold back silent tears. Olga, please don't cry. You have to understand me to know these things. And do you know who told me? Alka Kopteva. She's now Serebryanskaya after her divorce. You know where I ran into her? At a spare parts store in town. While I was talking to the salesperson, she recognized me and came out with a smile. She came out smiling. Do you remember how she used to chase me in school? Well, one thing led to another, and she hinted that she was available, invited me to her place. I laughed in her face, telling her, when I was young, it didn't work out, but now, why bother? She took offense at my words, and then told me that she saw you. I didn't believe her, so I left. But then, I had a thought, so I decided to find out, Mikhail confessed. Well, now you know, Olga sighed. Let's have lunch. Olga, now that everything's out in the open, let's come back together. I love you, and I know you love me too, Mikhail pleaded. That may be true, Misha, but love isn't enough for us to be happy. It's not going to work between us anymore. You might say you love me, but you won't forgive me, and I'll always feel guilty in your eyes. No, Misha, it's not meant to be, Olga explained. What makes you think I won't forgive you? Maybe I've already forgiven you, Mikhail countered. You know, Misha, the more you love someone, the harder it is to forgive. Let's focus on getting our son married. I'm grateful to you for Dinka. You're the best father in the world, Olga acknowledged. Well, let it be that way. It's not the right time yet, Mikhail said, gazing at Olga as if trying to remember something. Why are you looking at me like that? Olga asked. I haven't seen you in so long. I can't believe you're here, Mikhail replied. I've registered the house in Dinka's name. He's our heir. All right, let's have dinner and talk about the wedding. It'll be hard for me to handle it alone. And the most important thing in this whole situation is for you and me to remain good people in each other's eyes, Olga suggested.